So you've come here for the truth. Well, we've got the truth and nothing but the truth. Here are your hosts, Robert A. Bianchi and David J. Bruno.
Welcome to WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth with your hosts, Bob Bianchi and Dave Bruno. Dave, we have been getting some awesome guests and, a show about mindset every Saturday at 10:30, podcast dropping on Wednesday. I'm really loving it. You?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And boy, do we have a treat today because we have our new attorney, Jorge Morales from
baby.
Passaic County Prosecutor's Office, who was the head of Homicide. And he's also retired from the Army as JAG. But Bob, this is the first Nothing But the Truth with our guest in studio. Welcome, Jorge Morales.
That's right.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, gentlemen.
Yeah, so actually, Dave, I know Jorge from my Hudson County days when I was an assistant prosecutor and he was in the probation department and, kind of split off after a while. And I tracked his career. I knew he became an assistant prosecutor in Hudson County and then ultimately in the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office and moved very quickly to the coveted position. You don't put the B team in homicide cases and certainly supervising that kind of unit. So, Jorge, welcome and, always impressed. And, let me just start off a show about mindset, but you've accomplished so much in your career, including the JAG and the military piece. I love that picture on our website, right?
Yeah.
In your formal military outfit. Very successful, and we love your personality. That was the first thing that we do at the Bianchi Law Group when we hire. It's about personality first. That's the first phone call. What do you like as a person? What's your temperature? What kind of heart do you have? Commitment, whether it's from the prosecutor's office. We want to see if that's going to translate over to the defense side. So tell us a little bit about why you did so many varied things and the struggles that you went through and how you overcame them in terms of either the prosecutor, becoming a lawyer, or the military.
Well, Bob, David, I actually came from Colombia when I was about 15 years old. My first, knowledge of the law came through my uncle, who actually retired as a judge in Colombia. And I remember when he used to work for the Procuraduría in Colombia, which will be the prosecutor's office at the national level. So that got my interest in the law. When I came to the United States, I obviously thought that the English language was going to be a barrier for me becoming an attorney and whatnot. I joined the military. Pretty much I learned how to speak English in the military. Some can say that I'm still trying to learn, and that's great. But then eventually when I got out of the military, I focused on trying to go to college and become something of myself. Started in the probation department, and with that, I started in the prosecutor's office, following my clerkship with Judge Barbara Curran, the late Barbara Curran. She recently passed this year, and I don't know. I was just determined to be a prosecutor because of what I had learned from my uncle, because of my sense of justice in terms of comparing it to what I had seen in Colombia in the United States. My ability to be on both sides actually came when I joined the military. I was first a regular soldier, a tanker, but eventually when I became an attorney and I switched to JAG,
and just so everybody knows, that's Judge Advocate General, which is the legal arm, right? Like the prosecutors and defense lawyers in the Army.
Is the legal firm that represents the military.
Right. And you're like the Tom Cruise kind of guy.
Exactly, except that Tom Cruise was actually JAG for the Navy, and each of the services have their own JAGs. Even the Marine Corps has their own JAG. The Air Force, in my case, the Army. When I joined JAG, there came a time when they wanted to send me to a defense unit. I never thought in my life that I was going to be doing defense work as an attorney. But I'm like, okay, I'll go and I'll do it. Let me see what that is all about. I honestly think that was probably one of the best experiences of my legal and military career, being able to represent those that defend America. I was able also to learn so many things about dealing with people, looking at cases from different perspectives. I think that actually made me a much better prosecutor.
Yeah, and let me interrupt you, because I know that from speaking with you, something I was impressed with is it also makes you a better prosecutor, because you really, when you get to the other side, not only do you learn legal things that are different, but you have a different perspective about clients, and I would imagine. And how did that translate when you became a prosecutor in terms of maybe having more compassion or mercy towards those clients?
Well, you're absolutely right, Bob. One of the things that I learned in the prosecutor's office is that there's definitely evil in this world, but there are actually, thank God, few evil people, and there are some that I have come across. But for the most part, there are a lot of things that things that happen to people, and they make mistakes and they commit crime, and some of those crimes are indeed terrible, but they're not necessarily evil people. So being on the defense side allowed me to see a different perspective, to analyze crime and mistakes and conduct from a different perspective. Like you say, what it is that motivated these people, what it is that caused this crime or this conduct to occur, and the realization that behind the mistakes and the crimes that people sometimes commit, there is a human being that is subject to the pressures of life and that is dealing with their own struggles, just like we all do. And yeah, it gave me a little more of dimension to that human aspect of what we do as lawyers, either as prosecutors or defense attorneys.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing before I toss it over to Dave. The fact is, you retired from the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office and the military on the same day.
I did.
And literally, you need, how much time do you need of it? I'll be in there tomorrow. And you were in our office the next day. And I want to rewind that back a little bit to something you just said. You talked about having come from Colombia and not speaking English, and you had the drive maybe from your uncle that showed you about prosecutors, but you didn't go into a hole. You didn't cry about it. You didn't sit there and say, I'm not going to make it. You actually made this bold move and went into the Army so that you could learn English better, and then wound up getting through college and then being able to apply to law school and getting through law school, and then you got a coveted judicial clerkship, which many people don't know is not easy to get.
No, it isn't.
Tell me that struggle. Were you worried you couldn't do it, or was your mindset like, I'm going to do it, and it's just a question of how I'm going to get there?
Well, Bob, I through my family and uncles and aunts, they're tailors, they're politicians, they're all kinds of things. I always learned that as long as you want it bad enough, all you have to do is work. I always learn about having that sense that there is nothing that can stop you other than yourself. And I've been a firm believer on that. Quite honestly, English was my biggest obstacle to achieving what I wanted to do, because I never thought that I would actually learn it, that I would understand it, and that I would understand it to the degree that it is required to be understood when you are talking about practicing law. But I don't know. To me, the word can do was never part of my vocabulary, either as a child or as an adult. And having the support of my family, my friends, was always very good. But even if I didn't have it, I don't know. I just never had that mentality of being defeated by anything.
Well, whatever you did, you wound up getting a judicial clerkship, Dave, and he wound up becoming a lawyer, and he wound up retiring as a lieutenant colonel. And now you're here, so you must have impressed a lot of people along the way, Dave.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you're speaking our language too. I mean, at the Bianchi Law Group, you just touched upon one of the three core values, which is compassion. I mean, as criminal defense attorneys now, we have to deal with people that are in trouble at their lowest. They call us, their freedom's at risk, etc. And Jorge, we had one phone call with you, and Bob and I knew immediately that you are the right fit for this firm. Literally, and it's never happened.
Yeah, it's never happened. Usually we have a very extensive hiring process, and you got off the phone, you called me right away, I remember, you're like, oh, this guy's off the hook.
Absolutely. I mean, there was no doubt after that first call, and it's that experience as the JAG and on the defense side. Because look, we're the team of former prosecutors, and at times it's hard to find that same mentality, that mindset, because prosecutors, they're responsible for representing the state and prosecuting crimes, and if they don't have that balanced approach and that understanding of mindset and humanization and mitigation, they may not be the right fit for the Bianchi Law Group. But first call, we knew it right away. We're so happy to have you on board.
Yeah, we got about a minute before we take a break, but I want to address something that Dave just said. We were very impressed by your prosecutorial philosophy, because prosecutors are not to just seek convictions, they're to do justice, and you were very big on making sure you struck hard blows, but fair ones, as they say under the law. Talk to me about that.
I always believe that the prosecutors yield an enormous power, and you got to be judicious about how you wield it. And in particular, when it comes to prosecution, I think that I definitely wanted to develop a reputation as being a tough prosecutor, but particularly being a fair prosecutor. My job as a prosecutor was not as an advocate, except an advocate for the truth and for justice. And as such, my goal was not to get convictions, but to prosecute crimes under the law, under our rules, and to be fair to everyone involved.
Yeah, and that could mean, in some instances, based on the context, if a lawyer came to you and gave you the right explanations, you may say, you know what, I understand the context of that, and I'm not going to go as hard as I would typically with a case. So that was important to you to have good defense lawyers that were giving you good data, no?
Absolutely, and being able to process that data, to accept it, and to be able to make that decision. Again, when you have a case assigned to you, you're responsible for it. And if your supervisor gave it to you and say, this is what I want, and you came and found out that there is something that may preclude you from what they want, then it is your obligation to bring that information and to make sure that justice is done, whatever that is.
Funny, it reminds me of a situation when I was a young assistant prosecutor where I refused to do something that I felt was unethical and waited every day for months to see whether or not I was going to get fired, and which I would have gladly done. Anyway, Nothing But the Truth, every Saturday at 10:30, WMTR Radio. WMTR Radio is Nothing But the Truth. We're going to come back on the other end with Jorge Morales and part 2, right, Dave? Here we go.
Absolutely.
All right, stay tuned.
At the Bianchi Law Group, our team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and domestic violence cases. When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.
All right, welcome back to WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth with your host Bob Bianchi and Dave Bruno. So Jorge, we told you we were wowed by you. Dave mentioned this kind of before. We have a very limited universe of people that we accept in the firm as attorneys, and they're all former prosecutors. But not all prosecutors are created equal. I mean, there are some who are more talented than others. It was, and have more skill sets, and that's not being pejorative, but to do what we do, to be on your feet in a courtroom trying a case before jurors. Many people think that that's what most lawyers do. Most lawyers don't do that, and they don't necessarily do it well. But I'm curious. We knew about your reputation. We knew you didn't become a supervisor of that unit because you were not good in that courtroom. But when we had that first call, and Dave and myself were like, wow, he's off the hook, Dave said. I'm like, yeah, no, he was great. He was hitting everything that we are, who we are. What were your thoughts?
Well, Bob, I don't know if it's too much of a cliche to say that the feeling was mutual, but it was. I honestly, I had looked at throughout the years, and particularly in recent years, about my options following prosecution, the prosecutor's office. And that first call with you and with David, it was amazing. I mean, I honestly felt like this was the place that I wanted to go. I don't know how you guys felt, or you obviously said it a few moments ago, but I kind of felt the same way. I felt like this is the home that I want to be at when I'm out of the prosecutor's office.
Yeah, we kind of run it a little bit. Like my thought was, we kind of run it like the prosecutor's office was a little bit, but we do criminal defense work. And now that you've been here, what do you see that's different from what other law firms, defense law firms are in terms of how they practice and what their mindset is?
Well, one of your main goals here is to actually be compassionate And when you talk, and we have the morning huddles, and we have these conferences that I've been privy to for the last week. And one of the things I heard you say is how you would not mind expending some time, an hour and 2 hours sometimes, if you have to talk into a prospective client to only find out that maybe they cannot afford to hire us. But yet you are able to give that person a sense of feeling that they were listened to, that they were heard, that they were understood, and that the legal profession actually is a profession that is can be respected, that they can be compassionate. Because as you indicated in some of our conferences before, some people will end up telling you that, hey, you spoke to me more time and understood me more than the attorney that I've been paying money to represent me. To me, that was very important, and that was something that came across during that first interview.
I thank you for saying that. I think we've been blessed I'm blessed to have this partner, Dave, and being the skills we've had, our careers we've had, paying it forward. Even if somebody calls up and says, I don't have any money to afford an attorney, I know they're not going to be able to come here, but I definitely want to spend that hour, 2 hours with them to go over their case, so at least they hear what I believe to be a good lawyer, so that when they're vetting the other 98,000 lawyers that are out there, they can tell. And it is sad, Dave, we talk about this, where many, many times lawyers have been representing clients for a year, and they don't even know the charges filed against them, and the lawyers tell them to take a plea. I find that to be really sad. So I look at it as a public service. Thank you for recognizing that, Jorge.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about everything we have going on here. I mean, I say it pretty much every week on this show about this team of former prosecutors that we're putting together. And again, welcome to this team. I mean, we have a purpose here. We have a purpose to service clients, to help people at their lowest and be compassionate and get good results when we do it. Jorge, what's your purpose? I mean, you wake up in the morning, we have a job to do, but is there a greater thing pushing you to be everything you are?
I just want to be the best person that I can be for myself, for everybody else, and I want all the people to also get a feeling that particularly the profession is one that they can count on for justice. One of the things that you mentioned earlier, Bob, and you also mentioned before, David, is the fact that competence is important. And one of the things that I've seen throughout my military and my civilian career in the prosecutor's office is the fact that so many people are not necessarily represented by competent attorneys. And to me, that is important. And competence can be as little as making sure that you just devote the time that you need to devote to representing a client, to learning their case, to learning the facts, and fighting for that. I like to think that when I was a prosecutor, I fought very hard to represent the people of the state of New Jersey, and I want to do that now for people that may find themselves in trouble. While many prosecutors, particularly the ones that, like myself, find themselves at the edge of retirement, think that they will never be able to represent a defendant, or that it may be even kind of hypocritical to represent somebody that may be charged with a crime. But I see it as, I know I was a competent prosecutor. I know I gave it my best. And to the extent that there are people that need to be understood, people that need to be represented, I am willing to put that same effort to represent them and to be a true advocate, because as a defense attorney, that's what you really are, a true advocate, which is different from being a prosecutor.
What you just said about those who couldn't see being a defense lawyer. Now, you may not like what the day in and day out is. You may not like having to travel to different courts. That I get. But the concept you're bringing up is this idea, like, how could you be, a defense lawyer, is the cancer, the very cancer that's in the criminal justice system. Because that prosecutor is not recognizing that they're not omnipotent. They're not recognizing that they don't know the whole history of the person. They don't even know all the facts of the person, of the particular case. And they tend to put a blinder up. It's us versus them. And that is a problem that we confront I'm asked all the time by many people, governors, law, what can we do for criminal justice reform? What they're not understanding 90% of the time is hire the right people that have been through this system, that have the right mindset. When I was the county prosecutor, you would not be working there if you had a disparaging comment to make by the defense. Dave knows this for a fact. I welcomed good defense lawyering because it made sure that we were getting it right. Whether I agreed with them or disagreed with them could be a different point. And it's one thing to represent somebody as a prosecutor, representing the state, if you will. Of course, very valuable. Love doing it. But it's also another thing when you represent these individuals who are typically broken, mentally ill, addicted, usually living law-abiding lives, make a singular mistake, sometimes very tragic, to at least advance their point of view so that the prosecutor can come to a more reasonable resolution. Dave, that drives me crazy. Jorge's completely right about that.
Absolutely. It's an adversarial system. It's the only way that our criminal justice system works, is to have two competent attorneys, one with a burden of proof, with constitutional rights like we have, with the right to remain silent and a presumption of innocence and a right to a trial, that this process works. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jorge, let me throw this to you. In fact, we gave you your case this week. It's a big case. We know you can handle it. And you seem like you had a little fire about wanting to file some motions with the court because you saw what happened with and it's not to disparage another lawyer, what happened previously before we got the case that led to the individual being remanded to the county jail where they were waiting for trial. And you found stuff, put it together, read the transcript that went on in the hearing that led them to be detained. And you were like, you know what? I'm filing a motion for reconsideration. Talk to us about that. I mean, so there you go. Don't you? You're righting a wrong.
Absolutely, Bob. And I let me tell you, one of the things that you talked about is getting to know that person, trying to introduce that person. The prosecutor, for the most part, only sees the alleged crime and nothing more. And it creates a certain perception. As a defense attorney, in particular in this case, I'm able to see many other things. Like you say, let's not talk about the saint, but let's talk about the miracle. And in this particular case, I was able to find out that there were arguments that were left on the table, that there was information that was misrepresented and that was not corrected, and that there were assumptions made by the court based on that lack of information and misrepresentation that I think yielded an unjust result. Being able to see that and being able to now file a motion or going to file the motion to try to correct that wrong is something that really motivates me. Yeah. And you were talking about what motivates me, Dave, and that's what motivates me, a sense of justice, a sense of correcting the wrong. That is something that should motivate all of us.
Yeah. Amen.
And you're talking about commitment. You said it before, too, about going through the file and making sure you cover it all and get discovery. Oftentimes, we have to go out and get things that aren't in the file through subpoenas and investigative work and et cetera, right? So that commitment. And I applaud your commitment on the cases that you already had. I mean, you've already shown exactly what we thought we were getting when you came to this team.
All right, excellent. Jorge, we got to close it up because we're coming to the end of the show. But any final comments on anybody out there that doesn't think that they can become a lawyer, doesn't think they can do something, doesn't think and the system's going to favor them? Talk to us about it, because you came from Columbia to the BLG. You made all that journey with all that stuff in between. Final thoughts.
Well, the only obstacle to achieving anything in life is yourself. That's what I believe, and I think that if anybody wants to become I love to teach. I've done it, and I love to mentor people. And I think that if anybody wants to reach out and ask whether or not you could do it, I'm available. Send me a text, send me an email, and I'll try to motivate you. But really, the only obstacle is yourself. If you are a person of average intelligence, I think that anybody can achieve anything they want.
And I agree.
Amen. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, WMTR Radio is nothing but the truth. Your host, Bob Bianchi and Dave Bruno, with our new hire, the excellent, awesome Jorge Morales. We're really happy to have you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Good job.
Dave, we're Saturdays on the radio at 10:30, but I know you want to tell us about the podcast that drops on Wednesdays.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we film video for every single guest and every single episode So after it airs on the radio on Saturday mornings, we put it on podcast, and the video's available as well on nothingbuttetruthpodcast.com. The Bianchi Law Group, you can find us everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Did I hear TikTok? Bobby B, yes, R Bianchi ESQ on TikTok. I'm D Bruno ESQ.
If you want to laugh, look at my TikTok, and not laugh like when I'm putting out there it's funny. Laugh at just the way it looks me trying to do TikTok.
Yeah, it's a new platform, and look, anytime we could reach somebody that we may be able to help, I'll put my attention in something new. No question about it.
We'll see you next week.
The Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys.
But here's the thing. He put himself in a box when he said...
Relied on by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Law and Crime, and news leaders across the country for our criminal defense expertise.
In a search warrant, you have to have probable cause that a crime's been committed and there's evidence in a particular place.
When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.